Hi guys. Over the last few years, I've been helping a lot of companies with prioritization and to communicate the value and urgency of their ideas, but also to make trade-off decisions that are better informed based on economics. So I would like to share some of the things that I have learned over these years. But before we get started, I would like for us to do a quick exercise. So I would like each of you to imagine that you will be stuck in a desert island for the next 5 years on your own. So you can only take one thing with you. If you can only take one thing with you, what would that one thing be? So I would like you to discuss with your neighbors for a minute, and then we'll share. Don't be naughty. Okay, anyone who would like to share? What is that one thing that you would take? Anyone who would like to share? Yeah?
Swiss Army knife.
Swiss Army knife? Yeah? A bigger knife than that? Yes? Okay. Very good. Who else? Is there anyone else? Yeah? Okay. A book? Anything else? A boat. Is that one thing? Okay, that's good. So unfortunately, you were on your way to the island, and unfortunately, the baggage handlers lost your item. So you're on the island now, and you don't have your item. So the question is, how much would you be willing to pay in order to get your item back? Again, talk to your neighbors, and I want some quantified value. How much would you be willing to pay? There's one space here. There's a space here. There's one space here. Okay. So were you able to come up with some numbers? How much are you willing to pay? Or any benchmark value figures? Anything you have, any money you have. Okay, so you've given up. Okay. It's good that you noticed that. No one ever noticed that before. Yeah. Everything you've got. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the reason for this exercise was to demonstrate one of the ways we can put a value onto something that may seem intangible at first sight. So willingness to pay. There's another form of another method to put value onto something. It is willingness to accept compensation, which some industries use a lot. Can you tell me which industry? Willingness, sorry? Travel, insurance, yeah. So most people think that economics is all about money, whereas it's not. It is the study of scarcity, the choices we make, and how those choices define that value. So let's have so we talked about economics a little bit. So let's have a look at like product development and from the lens of economics. So let's first consider the supply side. If only product development was like a tap. You can turn it on and the beer flows, whereas it's not like a tap. So in reality, in product development, capacity takes time to build. So if you have some throughput and if you stop, let's say you lost one of your development teams, it takes a long time to recover that knowledge. Around probably 3 to 6 months. I don't know if anyone has another experience, but probably around 6 months. A working, high-performing team is an amazing thing. So we can't treat IT like a tap. You can't just turn it on and off. So we need to have like long-term sustainable teams. And if you look at some of the data on this, this was presented at a conference last year by Dimitar. You can really see that it takes around 3 months to get the team going. So that was the supply side. So let's have a look at the demand side. Demand side as often feels a bit like this. You have lots of stakeholders, they all want a piece of you. I'm sure you have really nice looking stakeholders like these. So, and often your stakeholders are pulling into different directions. They have conflicting priorities. And everything is a number one priority. Their feature, their project is a number one priority. So the question we're trying to answer today is, how do we survive in a world where stakeholders want it all, and even worse, they want it yesterday? So let me ask, how do your teams prioritize today? What sort of methods are you using?
How much revenue that change will bring in over X amount?
Okay, some quantification of value. That's very good. Quite advanced. Impact mapping, yes. Okay, very common. Yes, yes. Moscow, okay. Interesting. Cool. Okay, we have seen some methods with various degrees of success. So Moscow is one of them, where you categorize things into buckets. So can you tell me what's wrong with Moscow? Everything is a must-have. So it suggests that the value in our backlogs are linear. So nothing ends up in the won't-have bucket, in my experience at least. Another method we have seen is basically you kind of allocate a portion of your capacity into various departments in a fair manner. So you're looking for justice, you want to be fair. So that's what I like to call equity. And as often, different departments have budgets and they're fighting for the same development resource. And then, of course, it's not a very good way to prioritize because it's blind to value. So that's equity model. Another way I have seen, which I would like to call as the Eurovision model. So this is about political games, horse trading, lobbying. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Does anyone use the Eurovision model? Yeah. So another one, the Bcr High Jump. So this is where we have a lot of analysis going into business cases. We do lots of calculations. And it's most often, it's a kind of like a benefit, we're trying to get to a benefit cost ratio, but it's like a high jump. It's never a no. It is mostly like, yes, but can we understand this data a bit more? Can you elaborate on it a bit more before we can approve it? So most of these methods end up in situations like these, where you have a lot of things going on in analysis, and it takes an awful lot of time to get to the point of prioritization. So in this case, this is from a former company that I used to work with. As you can see, there are like around 3,000 items being analyzed. And you end up in a situation like this, where you have long lead times from an idea that was created to having that idea launched into production. It takes a long time. And most of this weight waste is in the fuzzy front end of the process, where you're trying to get to the point of prioritization. So what do we want? We want something that focuses on value and urgency. We want something that helps us make better trade-off decisions, and something that will help us change the focus of conversation from cutting costs to delivering value quickly. So the problem is, or the challenge is, it's hard to nail down what value is. So it's hard to reach a broad agreement on what the definition of value is. And we don't have crystal balls to see into the future. So we don't know what is actually going to end up being valuable. But we can't just close our eyes and imagine that the problem doesn't exist. We have to handle that demand somehow. Our demand will always exceed our capacity to deliver change. So how do we actually handle that demand? We have this large buffet. At the very least, we have to figure out where to start. So where do we start from? We have certain capacity to eat, probably some of us more than others. But where do we start? And most importantly, when do we stop and move on to something more valuable? And along the way, understanding value alone is not going to be enough. We need to understand urgency as well. And here is why. So this is a very typical value stream map. Has anyone done a value stream map before? So this is very easy to do. Take a few features that you have delivered in the last release, then map back their timelines to see what happened. So this particular idea was captured, and it's something that we delivered into production. It was captured in week 1, 18 weeks of waiting. There's a proof of concept for 24 hours for something that was going to take only 82 hours to develop and test. In between it waits for 11 weeks, and then 9 weeks of waiting goes live. In total, 38 weeks of waiting. So if we don't understand the cost of delay of this idea, then we don't really know what this waste is costing us as a company. So in this case, when we calculated the cost of delay, it was 210,000 per week. So in total, it was costing us 7 or 8 million in delay cost in revenue, which we could have made if we had delivered it earlier. So one of the things that I would like to highlight is it amuses me that most of us are always focused in our industry. We are focused on very much the efficiency of this little part of the process rather than focusing on the fuzzy front end, which is, by the way, 29 weeks of waiting in this particular example. So we are focused on more efficiency and more flow in that little part. I call this the urgency paradox, as if it wasn't urgent until it gets to development and then it suddenly gets urgent. Well, the cost of delay hasn't changed, it's still the same. And the time is still ticking, yeah? So perhaps this is the reason why Don Reinison says, if you only quantify one thing, quantify the cost of delay. Questions so far? Nope? Cool. So what is cost of delay? Cost of delay is the impact of time on outcomes we would hope to achieve. And to get people to start thinking about cost of delay, I kind of like say to them that I have a magic wand in my bag which instantly delivers the product or the feature that they are looking to have. And then I follow up with a few questions. First, what would it be worth to us if we had that feature or that product right now? If you have some sort of nominal delivery date, then you can actually follow up with 2 more questions. What would it be worth to us if we had that feature 1 month earlier? Then you can really question if it is a real deadline or not. Or turn the question around, what would it cost us if we got it 1 month later. So this should at least get the conversation going. So in order to get to cost of delay, we need to understand two things, value and urgency. We need to start with the value first. So to get, I don't know why this is happening. Okay, we came up with a very simple framework for thinking about value. Something that will get us started. 4 simple buckets, 2 on the revenue side, 2 on the cost side. This at least aligns our understanding of the definition of value in our organizations. And then you can tweak it for your own organization if you need to. And from my experience, I have seen that it works very well for both private and public companies and across various industries. So on the revenue side, we have 2 buckets. Increased revenue is one of them. So these are the features or your new products that you want to have in your portfolio that will add more market share or maybe increase share of wallet with your current customers. Protect revenue is about improvements and incremental innovation to sustain your current revenue base. You need to keep delighting your current customers so that they stay with you. Yeah? And on the cost side, reduce costs is a very common one because we all want efficiency and automation and so on. So these are costs that we are incurring currently, but we can do something about it. We can automate some of our processes. We can improve our margin or contribution. And the last bucket on the cost side is the avoid cost. So these are the improvements to sustain your current cost base. So if you don't do something in the future, then you will start incurring those costs. If you have regulatory requirements, these mostly go into the avoid cost bucket. Any questions? No? Okay, moving on. So then we kind of like try to look at all different ideas from this lens, 4 buckets. So then we ask, like, why should we do this? And if we can't get to one or more of these buckets, and if we can't estimate the value, then we should turn around, look at the mirror and ask ourselves, is it worth it? Maybe it's worth it. So along the way, it's important to make your assumptions visible and share with people around you. So a couple of tactics to get to value. You can make the value equal to the cost of alternatives. So let's say automating a process. So you can save the current manual cost, which would go into the reduced cost bucket, or you can save the cost of human errors, which goes onto avoid cost bucket. Second one, you can estimate the value of the effects of the change. An example is we're improving the invoicing clarity and accuracy for our customers. You can reduce payment delays by making clearer invoices. That would increase revenue because you can start getting payments earlier and you can start making interest on it. And you can make it easier for customers to pay the correct amount, which means they're less likely to leave you. That goes on to protect revenue bucket. And it would use less employee time processing invoicing disputes on the phone or in your customer service departments. That would go on to the reduced cost bucket. So a couple of tactics, very simple. So we talked about the value side of the equation. We need to understand how that value decays over time. And that's understanding the urgency profiles that we tend to see. So we're going to do some calculus. Yay. So let's say we have an idea that we have launched into production. It has a bit of a take-up period. It's a typical S-curve. It reaches to a peak and goes on to perpetuity. Yep. And what happens if we deliver, let's say, 1 month late? So you basically have a look at the amount of late entry, and then the shape is the same, the take-up is the same, unless you do something to change it the second time around, but we assume that it's going to be the same. And the difference between the 2 curves is your delay cost. And it's very, very easy to calculate because it's actually a parallelogram in this case. You kind of look at the amount of late entry times the peak benefits, and that's your delay cost. Clear? with me so far? Perfect. Okay, we tend to see a few urgency curves for profiles in general. So first one is long and affected, which we discussed in the previous slide. So this is for benefits with a very long life cycle, with peak benefits unaffected by the delay. So that's urgency profile number one. Anything that you do in order to reduce costs probably will go into this bucket. If you're automating your process, for instance, if you're changing your processes and your contact center agents and so on. Second one we see is where you have short benefits horizons and your peak benefits are reduced due to late delivery. Can you give me an example of products that would go into this bucket? Short benefit horizon, you lose some market share. Okay. Yes, because you have like a certain time period. Yes. Christmas cards. Yes, we're going to come back to that. Yeah, definitely this one with a bit of an option expiry zone. Any other industries? For instance, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. So, for instance, when I was working at Maersk Line, shipping company, I had a customer, Gap, probably you know. If we delivered their containers late, then they had to sell their T-shirts by half the price into the market. So they lost that peak benefit. So they have a reduced market share, but for a temporary period of time. Yeah. Okay. So third one is where we again have long benefits horizon, but this time with a reduced peak if we deliver late. So in these cases, if we deliver early or if we are the first entrant into the market, then we can monopolize the whole market. So we have a chance to do that. And if we are late, then we have lost that benefit forever. Any ideas about what sort of products these would go into? Is it? Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe that's very specific, yeah, to your industry, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's right. Then you need to be first to market. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would argue that mobile phones is maybe a bit shorter because they kind of like have like shorter cycles, but I don't know. Yeah, phone packages. Okay, cool. So in my view, Uber is going for this sort of stickiness, where it is they have created the network effect, but who knows? We will see. And I think Facebook is a good example of this sort of model. If you want to build another social networking site, you're a bit too late. But this doesn't mean that those companies won't get disrupted. It's more likely that the disruption will be a bit slower than the other industries, other product types. Yep. And the fourth one is where we have a external deadline where we need to deliver to. And you have an option expiry date, and your cost of delay until that option expiry date is actually zero, but then after the last responsible moment, the cost of delay bumps up. So this could actually have the same shape as the short benefits horizon one, number two, but you might still have a date. So like this one, for instance. So in some cases, you have a zone, not a clear date, like the Christmas cards, for instance, Christmas example, Christmas product, Christmas cards. It's not a specific date because probably if you launch your Christmas cards one day before Christmas, no one's going to buy it. So it's probably a zone that your product expires. And it is like short life cycle. Any questions? Okay. So we talked about value and urgency, but there is one thing that we kind of tend to forget in product development, which is the value of information discovery. Product development is a journey of discovery. We make a lot of assumptions when we are building our products. Is this architecture going to scale? When we put all of these components together, is it going to work? Is our feature going to be used by our customers? Is it going to make money? So there are a lot of assumptions. And if you're in Monica's talk, she talked about experiments. So there is some value in running experiments, small experiments, to figure out, to validate these assumptions that we make. And that's why information discovery value, it's very hard to quantify, but it can be quantified, and it goes on to one of those 4 buckets as well. And we shouldn't forget about that. So there is some value to figure out whether we have taken the wrong path. Then we can stop early and then avoid the cost of taking that wrong path early on. So there are a few questions that you should ask yourself when you're running experiments. What is it worth to avoid taking the wrong path? How about what is the cost to obtain this information, this very same information firsthand, if we can get it? Or how much are we willing to pay for this information? If we go out in the market space, how much can we pay for it to get this information? So that's basically information discovery value, which we shouldn't forget. So I kind of brought some real examples that I have worked with. Let's see if these are going to be useful for you guys. So this one is basically a change, a new requirement that was going to improve moisture accuracy, which will reduce the number of customers paying late, worth an additional $4 million per annum. And that will also reduce the number of calls that we receive currently in our customer service department, which is costing us $20K per FTE and in total 5 FTEs. It goes on to 2 buckets, and cost of delay is $80K per week. And why do we, any ideas about why we calculate it per week? Why do we communicate cost of delay per week? Any ideas? Sprints, yeah, you can tie it to the sprints, I like that. Yes, so we want to create a sense of urgency. So let's say I'm the product manager for this requirement. If I delay this important meeting that I need to have with my stakeholder, if I kind of like postpone it to a week later, then it's actually costing the company $80K per week. Yeah. And create sense of urgency. That's why we communicate it per week. So another one, in this case, we have an external deadline. We're trying to automate a process that will satisfy a new regulation, which will be effective 1st of September 2015. And this will avoid the additional manual processing cost, which is estimated around $20K per FTE, which is $400K per year. So in this case, because we have an external deadline, we need to look at what is our last responsible moment as to when we can start working on this requirement. So it's going to take around 13 weeks to automate, which we have estimated. So if we delay the start date on this to work on this requirement 1 week beyond the last responsible moment of 1st of June, then it's going to cost us $8,000 per week. So up until the last responsible moment of 1st of June, cost of delay is actually 0. And then it's bumped up. So this is actually a very good tool for communicating value and urgency, especially when you have like external deadlines, because most people think that external deadlines means like everything is going to be, number 1 priority, which is not the case. You actually have a last responsible moment which you need to take into consideration. Up until then, you can actually work on other requirements in the meantime. Yep. Another one. So I actually vividly remember when the product owner brought this one to the table. So this was a change which will again, which was going to satisfy a new customs regulation. I think it was around like Al Jazeera's. And if we don't satisfy, if we don't meet the customs regulation, then we are expecting to be fined about $500,000 per vessel. And we have 10 vessels that are calling at certain ports. And in this case, when the product owner came to the table, he said like, oh, okay, this is going to cost like 20 million. This is actually like a massive value requirement. And he got challenged by the product owners within the team because he had kind of assumed that for each vessel calling the port, we were going to get fined, which is not the case. You kind of get a bit of a leeway. So we settled on 20% as the probability of being fined. And then it was reduced to 1 million per week, which is still huge. It was still prioritized and delivered. But at least we were able to kind of like challenge each other's assumptions and by making them visible and tapping into some sort of system 2 thinking, I would say. It was very interesting to see. So let's say we have these 3 requirements with different costs of delay per week. So if these take the same amount of time to deliver, which one would you do first? It's very easy, right? The last one. But in software development, this is rarely the case. So when the time required to deliver varies, we don't use cost of delay. We actually use cost of delay divided by duration, CD3. This is how we prioritize our backlogs, basically. So cost of delay, we talked about it as value and urgency. Duration is about how long that pipeline is going to be blocked by this one feature. So let's have a look at some other scheduling methods. So first in, first out, very common in manufacturing because everything is kind of like the same value in manufacturing. Every product rolling off the production line would be the same, and it takes the same amount of time to deliver. So it makes sense to use first in, first out scheduling in manufacturing. So let's say we use the same method for these 3 features. So first feature A arrives, and then B, then C. Different durations, different cost of delays, different CD3 scores. So when we are delivering feature A, we are incurring the cost of delay of A, B, and C. When we are delivering feature B, we are incurring the cost of delay of B and C, and so on. And in total, the delay cost that we are accumulating in our pipeline is 50K. So this is first in, first out. So let's have a look at what happens when we use CD3 scheduling. Oops. So in this case, we would start with B because that has the highest CD3 score, 4,000. So when we are delivering B, we are incurring the cost of delay of B, C, and A. When we are delivering C, we are incurring the cost of delay of C and A, and so on. So it is reduced down to 8K. The delay cost is reduced down to 8K. 84% reduction in delay cost compared to first in, first out. So CD3 is the optimum way to schedule our ideas for a fixed capacity pipeline. Yeah? And if you don't believe in this, and if you're having trouble understanding, I actually had to sit down and work out the formula for myself. And it does work. It is definitely the optimum way to prioritize. You're welcome to prove it as well. Have a look at it. I think we have it on the website as well. You can have a look. But a bit of a warning. At the end of the day, it's not an algorithm that makes the decision, right? We still have common sense. We're probably using additional levers, like organizational strategy, for instance. So opening a pizza shop around the corner could be a very valuable idea, but it doesn't mean that you're going to do it because that's not your part of your product vision. So you need to figure out like what your organizational strategy is and your technology strategy as well. And in the real world, what we advise is start with CD3 as an initial means to triage to sift through your ideas. Then, if you need to make adjustments, adjust the cost of delay, not the CD3. Adjust cost of delay to reflect your strategy, and most importantly, state your reasons for adjustment and make it visible to everyone. That's the most important thing. So I always get asked this question. I don't know if you have this burning desire as well. Why divide by duration by not cost? I get asked by a lot of the finance people. So in order to answer this question, we have to ask another question. In product development, which of these three is normally the most limited? Money, capacity, or time? Who thinks it's money? Who thinks it's capacity? Some of you, yeah? How about time? Okay, cool. So money, you can beg, borrow, steal money. If you have a great idea, you will definitely find the money from somewhere. Maybe you will kind of talk to your friends in this other department who will accept to give some of their budget. So you will find it. Capacity, it's difficult to scale for the obvious reasons we talked about in the beginning of the presentation. But we still have some flexibility. It takes a while to get to scale up capacity, but we still have some flexibility. But time, you can't replace, you can't reverse it. The hour you spend here is gone, right? Hopefully you got some value out of it. So time and how long will the pipeline be blocked is the most important question to answer. Okay, and yes, so for the ones who are big fans of no estimates movements, I would like to say that actually estimates are useful. Just don't abuse them, please. But please, let's not talk about no estimates. Okay, so we talked about prioritizing using value and urgency. And I would like to touch upon how we can actually enable better trade-off decisions by using cost of delay. So I have a few examples that I will walk through. But first of all, I would like to highlight the challenge that we have in most IT departments. The cost of the conversation seems to focus on, the focus of the conversation seems to be cost and how we can drive those costs down. But what we want to do is to switch that focus into delivering value quickly. So how can we do that using cost of delay? So let's say we have two different choices to make. Two vendor suppliers that we're evaluating. Supplier A will cost us 100K, but it will take 10 weeks. Supplier B will cost us 50K, and it will take 20 weeks. So which one would you go for? Depends. Okay, let's say this is a must-have feature. Can you make a decision? Okay. How about return on investment 300%? Whatever that means. Go for that. How? How do you make the decision? Okay. Another one, benefit cost ratio 4.6. No clue. Why? Let's get a bit controversial. Some suggest that this is the way to calculate cost of delay. Business value plus time criticality plus risk reduction. Business value is somehow relative. Time criticality, more relative stuff. Risk reduction, yes, relative. No, this is not the right way to do it. Even more controversial. Let's say classes of service expedite, yay. Can you make the decision now? Well, at least I can get a sense of the urgency, which is good, but I can't make the decision. So let's save ourselves from the misery. Cost of delayed, 10,000 per week. Which one would you go for? You would go for A? A? Nodding. Okay, 10,000. I would deliver it 10 weeks earlier, which is, I'm saving cost of delay 100K in delay cost, and it's going to cost me 50K. Well, it's the right decision to make, right? Supplier A. Do you want more? One more, maybe? One more example? Sorry. Okay. Option A, we have offshore resource that will cost us 5,000 and it will take us 6 weeks. Option B, local resource, 10,000 and it will take us 4 weeks. And cost of delay is 10,000 per week again. Which one would you go for? Making sums in your hand. Sorry? B. Okay. So we will deliver it 2 weeks earlier, which is 20K in delay cost. But the cost will only go up for 5K. which makes sense, right? So you would go for option B. But if you don't make this information visible, then you're more likely to optimize for the cheaper one. Yes? The same infrastructure supplier, two choices. Option A is tier 1 supplier, which is going to take take longer. Option B is alternative supplier, which is going to take 2 weeks. Which one would you go for? B. Yes. I mean, I'm yet to meet that head of infrastructure who would optimize for option B. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case. Okay. So this is what I wanted to demonstrate today. So cost of delay, it helps us by creating focus on value for money, enables us to make better trade-off decisions, and it changes the focus of the conversation. So I would like to share some of the results we have seen. So this is one of the former companies that I used to work for, Maersk Line. I was there for 11 years. When we first started using cost of delay at Maersk Line, we thought it was going to be very hard. We were trying to find someone, brave soul, that was going to give it a try. But then it was actually not as hard as people thought. And it started going viral after one team. So we started with this one team of like 10 product owners who were prioritizing for the same pipeline. And then afterwards, other product owners from different departments were going like, okay, we want that method as well, because suddenly we gave them a way to communicate the value and urgency of their ideas. This was one of our first teams, as I said, that went through it. And then we went on to some of the London teams, and our product owners were very impatient about applying cost of delay into their backlogs, which was very good. And again, another team, another department. And even enterprise architecture, they came down from their ivory tower and joined in, which was very good. Senior management suddenly started communicating cost of delay, using cost of delay in their language. As you can see, this is an angry senior manager who's waiting for his requirement to be delivered. So along the way, we have discovered something about value, which initially surprised us, but it doesn't surprise us anymore. So this is the first team that went through this, and the backlog of the team. This is basically backlog of the global booking system, which handles 26,000 bookings every day. So as you can see, the top 25% of the requirements is worth 1,000 times more than the bottom 25% of the backlog. So this suggests that the value in our backlogs is not linear. And in fact, if you plot it on a chart, it looks something like this. A small number of features have a very high cost of delay, a very high impact onto the organization. So, and we moved on to other teams and other organizations. This doesn't surprise me anymore, because we keep seeing the same shape over and over again. It's exactly the same shape. 20% of your requirements deliver 80% of the value in your backlog. And most of the times when I show these charts, I get asked like, oh, can we not just cut the tail? Like, can we not just deliver the 20% and you know, just stop? Unfortunately, these high value ideas arrive at random times. So you don't know when they're going to arrive. That's why it's important to experiment and discover what's going to be valuable for you and your organization. Fixing the scope up front is not going to help. And that's the reason why projects are a very poor vehicle to deliver product development. So arrival is random. We need flexibility, not fixed scope or fixed time frames. And we need to discover what's valuable for us. Okay, so hopefully this was useful. And if you want more, We have a lot of material on blackswanfarming.com, and the experience report that was mentioned in the beginning, IEEE report. And yeah, you can also ask us some questions. I'm sure Joshua loves answering those questions. Also, he's very active on Twitter. So if you have any questions, just let us know and we'll try to get back to you. We like hearing the challenges that people have implementing cost of delay. And let me know how it goes.